Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fumey, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have Nate Tew, who is the co-founder and CEO of KeyRenter Property Management. Nate, how are you today?
Doing great, Frank. Appreciate you having me on.
Nate, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. Property management. Think I know what that is, of course. I haven't spoken to anybody who is in the franchise side of it, so I'm excited to kind of hear your background, how you got this thing started, what you guys do. So why don't you share with me what even brought you to franchising the concept?
Yeah, absolutely. So residential property management is what we do, and we take the burden of managing the tenants, the toilets, the troubles for people that have and own rental properties. We take that burden away from them, and we become the landlord for them, so that they can sit back and be able to relax, own the property, but not have to deal with the day-to-day of it. So we collect the rent, we handle issues that come up, and we have tools and systems and automations to be able to make that easier for our franchise owners. And what happened for us is back in 2006, I was working with my co-founder, Aaron Marshall, who was a successful real estate broker, and we were selling bank foreclosures. And there's a certain element of selling bank foreclosures for banks that is property management related. You're handling sometimes cash for keys, sometimes you're handling situations with the occupants. So people actually thought that we did property management back then, but we didn't. And in 2007, we started buying some properties, wanting to flip those properties and keep some as rentals. Some of them wouldn't actually flip, if you know back and we remember what happened in the real estate market during that time. Some things started to shift. And so we started hanging on to those as rentals. And by default, we were trying to figure out a property management solution and realized that there wasn't as good of an option for us at the time, and a provider of property management that really aligned with what we were trying to accomplish. And our foreclosure business was starting to go down or slow down because of some of the foreclosure acts that were passed. And so it just seemed like an opportune time here in the Salt Lake City area for us to start our own company. And so in 2007, 2008, we launched our own local company, one to manage our own properties, but also to meet some of the demand and the need that we had in our own Keller Williams location that we were officing out of. And, I took the lead in that company in the property management sector and began growing that, scaling the business, got to the point of where, hey, we actually have something really great here. This is a great business. It's a great time for this business. Let's go nationwide with this. And kind of interesting way that we thought about the different ways of going nationwide. One was, of course, to open up our own locations. And the other one was to franchise. And I think the concept of franchising, it was new to me and to Aaron, but it was something that was really interesting. Kind of funny side story. I watched an episode of Undercover Boss with Amit, the founder of Menchie's. This is in October of 2013. And it inspired me so much that I went to Aaron the next day and said, Aaron, I think we should franchise. And let's look at this process. Let's kind of evaluate some of the pros and cons. And this will give you a little insight into his personality. We decided, okay, let's table this for a week. Let's come up with some of our lists of things to evaluate and research. Well, a week goes by and I said, well, Aaron, here's what I think. And he said, what do you mean? I already have the website. I already have the franchise attorney. I already have, we're starting on the FDD,
Oh my goodness.
Just, that was him. And he was just so entrepreneurial. My role is much more, let's get the processes in place. Let's make sure that we got the systems, the infrastructure, and integrate those pieces together. And so we started selling in 2014 franchises. We sold our first couple at end of 2014. We had our very first KeyRenter training with new franchisees. We had 4 coming in January 2015. And since then, of course, as they say, the rest is history up to this point. So,
yeah. Wow. What a cool beginning. And Gutsy move, man. You get the business going in 2008. You have to have a lot of guts, right?
Well, the interesting thing about, foreclosures, of course, started booming, right? I mean,
Sure.
2009 was actually the best year for foreclosure sales.
Mhm.
But of course, there was legislative put out there, the Foreclosure Act of 2009 that was put out there. It prevented banks from foreclosing. And so our business literally dried up overnight after that act was passed, or it took a couple of months to dry up, I guess I should say. But property management, though, is such an interesting business and a business model where when the market is hot, it's a great time for property management because there's a lot of people buying more properties, trading, exchanging, a lot of people that are looking at taking advantage of, for example, low interest rates that we saw several years ago and up until this year, really. A lot of people buying. But when the market's down, it's even better because so many people are needing to now rent homes instead of being able to buy, which is the current market climate that we have today. And many more people that own properties don't want to sell or they can't sell. So they're turning those into rentals. And we're seeing on both sides the number of tenants increasing dramatically and the number of rentals entering the pool to try to meet the 6 million home shortage that we have in the country. And so it's just a good time for the business back then in 2008, 9, 10, 11. In fact, I don't even think we really recognized how good of a time we had it because that's when we started. It was actually when the market started to increase again and those values coming back, say 2016 through 2020, 21, that we consider those years the great sell-off when a lot of people that fell into rental ownership began selling their properties because they were recouping their losses and they're moving into other asset classes.
There's not a whole lot of businesses where you can do well during a great market and even better during a recession, right?
It's a great business, Frank. It really is. One of the challenges I'll say is that and this can be a blessing and a curse for our franchise partners that come in, is they can make a great income with a small portfolio, and they can make a great income with a larger portfolio and a scaled business. And it's actually sometimes challenging to get them to move into larger stages of growth because they're actually doing really well at a lower size business.
I want to step back to the earlier years. So you mentioned Aaron Marshall, your co-founder, who obviously sounds like super inspirational and somebody who, wasn't afraid to take risks and somebody who really took the ball and ran with it. You hear about stories that of partnerships that, they start out good, they go bad. It doesn't always work out, but it sounds like with you and Aaron, you sound like to me, you guys probably had a pretty special relationship. And unfortunately, I know that you shared in the pre-call about Aaron's passing. And I want you to share with the audience, I want you to focus on the partnership and what happens when challenges like that arise.
Yeah, and it's actually, every time I talk about it and go through some of the story, it's actually healing for me because I had never up to this point lost someone so close to me. I'd lost grandparents, I'd lost other people that I knew. But when you have a business partner, it's more than a brotherhood, right? I mean, it's more, he and I were close in so many ways, and you go through so much struggle, trial, difficulty, success, and your blood, sweat, and tears together. And to lose someone like that, obviously, it's a life-changing experience. But one of the things, interestingly, early on, when we first met, we just instantly connected on several things. One, we knew that family was number one. Our families came first. We aligned in our vision. We aligned in our values, which is critical for any partnership. In fact, I see when I evaluate partnerships, and we have, of course, partnerships as our franchisees are coming on board, we consider them partners. We even use that terminology of partners. And if they have a partnership, we talk about the importance of alignment in those two key areas: vision, which can include, of course, purpose and mission and direction and how we do things. And then, of course, values, which is who we are at the core, how we make those decisions based on how we're wired and how we view life and those sort of things. And we had that. Aaron and I had that, which we knew that we could get through any challenges together. And of course, we had our fair share of disagreements and challenges as good partners have, you've got to have a little bit of yin and yang. And he was definitely that push and that person that would jump into things with very little plan. He just always had faith and knew that things would work. And then I would be there, maybe a little bit of pull and saying, okay, let's think about how we're going to do this. And it just worked that way. And it really allowed us to get things done and to progress. But when you have the partnership, and I know that there's listeners potentially that have partnerships either on the franchisor side, franchisee side, wherever it is. And even when I think about marriage and spouses and those partnerships, that alignment is critical, absolutely foundational. And having conversations about that, and then having the difficult conversations of, okay, how are we going to get through this disagreement? How are we going to get through this obstacle that we're facing? And being willing to enter what I call the danger zone of vulnerability and not just skirting issues. Because we actually had some challenges that we had to seek outside help for to help us get through. And that was one amazing thing that we were both willing to do, is to seek out help when we needed help in our partnership. But nothing could have prepared us for Aaron's diagnosis of cancer. Nothing, we obviously, in fact, I had a conversation recently with his wife, his widow, who she and I are actually, it's kind of amazing. She and I are partners in the franchise now. I bought her out of a couple other businesses. We actually had a corporate owned store and location, our very first location, bought her out of that, but we remain partners. She doesn't have an operating role, but we meet regularly. She's involved. And she's becoming more and more instrumental in some of the things that we're doing. But having a conversation with her that 3 years ago, when we were mapping out our 3-year picture, we had no clue that this obstacle, this challenge with Aaron and his diagnosis would come about. But we've got to be prepared to know how to respond when difficult things happen. And the way that we responded, of course, was laying out a succession plan. We already had that before we even knew of the diagnosis. And I think for any partnership, you've got to have some kind of, even if it's a loose succession plan, in the event that one of us should have something happen to us that makes it so we can't operate or we pass away, whatever that is. Making sure we've got life insurance. That's critical. Key man policies on each other. It's amazing how many business owners and partners that I've talked to over the last couple of years that don't have that. And it makes it very challenging to, whether there's a buyout involved or whatever it is, it just makes it more stressful. We did have that gratefully that allowed us to have some of that flexibility and room. But then also, how are we going to communicate this to the network, right? We had a lot of our team, of course, our corporate team, franchise partners that truly loved Aaron as a friend, as a mentor. So being willing to be open about it. He started a blog where he talked about his experience with cancer throughout the process. He was very communicative about it. I was communicating things as things started to get more difficult towards the end. It was kind of challenging too, because he started doing very, very well. Two months before he passed, we thought he had beat it. And Frank, that was really encouraging and very discouraging to come to find out the next week that things just kind of blew up, as far as just the growth and everything. He had stage 4. He was diagnosed with stage 4 colon and appendix cancer.
Oh.
The reason he found out about it was his appendix burst. and that's how they found the cancer. And it was unfortunately really too late. But communicating regularly and often to the network is something that really brought us together more, and the franchise partners supporting him, praying for him, all those different things was really building and growing of our culture and allowed us to be strong throughout that process. And then as he was getting close to passing, we actually had a very close friend, mentor, and the founder of CGI franchise, Art Coley, that many people know, who we were working with for some of our franchise development recruitment processes. And he just said, you know what? He was really close with us and with Aaron. He just said, if you need me to step in as an interim CEO for a little while you're transitioning and then healing and going through this, he said, I will do that. And so few weeks before Aaron passed, he stepped in, and that was just such a blessing and such a lift to our organization to have his experience and his strength to help the network get through that. All along, I was still communicating with the franchisees, but being able to step away a little bit more, spend more time with Aaron and his family, help Andrea, his wife, and kids kind of work through that process. It was just really impactful. So that's another lesson, is like, never be so prideful that thinking that we don't need that help, and having people and mentors around us that can recognize opportunities for them to help and being willing to accept that was really important for me and for us. And so fast forward, he passes away in June of 2021, and Art remains as interim CEO. I stepped back in as COO with him in November, and then the following June stepped in again as CEO. And since then, it's just amazing to see how we still maintained 30% growth year over year during that time. Franchisees continued to win and find success. And we all miss Aaron. We pay tribute to him often, but we're stronger because of what we went through. And I truly believe that as we pass through the storms of life, there's always sunshine waiting on the other end, regardless of how difficult, how dark, how challenging. If we just keep moving forward and taking the next step, life hands us sunshine, because it's always waiting for us.
Wow. Nate, that is so inspirational. I haven't spoken to anybody on this podcast that has gone through what you went through. I can't imagine how difficult that was. You know, it makes me think, one of the people who were most inspirational to me is Tony Robbins. And I've gone, you know, I've been part of the Tony community for, I don't know, 30 years. And you'll hear Tony often say that business is a spiritual game. I can't stop hearing Tony say that as I'm hearing you share your story, having to help heal your company and have this transition because you had to maintain the leadership while you were going through this mourning period of a friend, and also, you know, comforting, you know, his family as well. So, you know, I give you just incredible kudos, and I have so much admiration for how you've been able to navigate that.
I appreciate that. You know, there's those that will say there's the business life and the personal life. And I just think that that's not true. I think there's just life, and business is such a part of our life, and it's such a part of our personal lives. And I think the more we embrace who we are as people, we bring that into business, we bring that into our relationships that we have with our team members, with our franchise partners, and we get to know, and we understand what challenges they're going through personally. It allows us to be better at business. It allows us to have stronger relationships. You know, our first core value is relationships first. And how can I truly have a strong relationship with a franchise partner, with a team member, with a client, or whoever it is, if they don't know me, and if I don't know them, and if they don't understand that I'm flawed in many ways and I'm striving to get better and do better every day, and we recognize that we're all imperfect beings here on this planet, and we're just trying to be the best version of ourselves every day for the people that we love and the people we care for, it really elevates, and I believe makes business so much more satisfying and so much more fun. Because I mean, you and I both know we can make good money in business, and that's all fun and games, and that's great, and that supports lifestyle, and that supports opportunities and great things that we want to do in life. But at the end of it, man, those relationships are so critical. And I remember conversations with Aaron about, you know, what could we do with, you know, as the business, you know, breaks even and we start having a profit, we start taking distributions, and just all these things that we dream about. And maybe there's an equity event and all this sort of stuff. Well, he never really got to see that the way that we're seeing it today. But you know what he did have was he was rich in a lot of ways with the relationships around him. He made sure that his family knew that they were the most important people and things in his life, and his calendar showed it. And that's one thing that we can look at and say, how am I going to assess my life? And how am I assessing my life week in, day out? Does my calendar really show proof that my family comes first? Yes, we have work we got to do. But I think the most important work that we could ever do is within the walls of our own homes. And that's one thing I try to instill with our franchise partners, for their teams, for all of our team members, is that man, we have so much more to give each other and the people that are most important in our lives. That's what's going to help us succeed, is that focus on relationships and people.
You've had some great success since franchising. So you franchised it back in 2014. You've got 63 franchises in 22 states. Just knowing you for this 20 minutes or so, I can tell that you're the kind of leader and CEO that puts so much emphasis on the kind of person that you must bring into your system. Who is your ideal franchise owner, and what traits do they need to have in order to be successful and to fit within that culture of your company?
Yeah. And you brought up, growth and where we're at today. And I think that, yes, we do have some big lofty goals for the future, and we plan to grow and with great people. And part of that equation of great people is great brand ambassadors and great franchise partners and franchise owners that see that we are truly aligned. I think the success in franchising, and you've forgotten more about franchising than I could probably ever learn, Frank. And I definitely look up to you as someone in this space that's truly succeeded and seen all sorts of different ways of growing. But I truly believe in my heart that as a franchisor, our responsibility is to ensure and do everything we can every waking moment that our franchise partners are winning. They're succeeding. We're aligned in the way we have royalties. We're aligned in the way they're making money, that it supports them first and then trickles to us. And I think as we're looking for the right people to come in, that alignment is critical. Mm-hmm. So I already talked about vision, value alignment, but we also look for people that have an interest in real estate. Of course, it's important that they have some passion for the product that they're selling, the service that they're offering to people, that they enjoy rentals. Oftentimes they'll have some of their own. Many times the candidates come say, hey, I've been a landlord for years and I really enjoy it, and I'd like to make a business out of it. That's really great. Not all of them do. In fact, some of them are aspirational. They want to buy rentals, and we love that because that's a big part of our business model, is them being able to be at the center of this opportunity around them. When people are looking to sell, they can raise their hand and say, hey, I'd love to make you an offer, from one of their clients, and they can start building their portfolio. And we have franchise owners that now have, 5, 10, 20, 50 of their own personal rentals. And that's building generational wealth beyond the generational wealth they have through the business, which is really powerful. So that interest in real estate investing, they don't need to know everything about it. They just need to say, you know what, I can align with this. I like rentals and the business of owning that, and serving people that want to own it and helping them grow as well, but not having them have the burden of the day-to-day. I can get behind that. But then we also look at one of my greatest mentors is Patrick Lencioni. He's written many books that you're probably familiar with. And one of those is The Ideal Team Player, where he talks about people being humble, teachable, right? And so they're humble, they're teachable, they're willing to follow, they're willing to admit faults, different things. They're hungry, they're goal-driven, they're aspirational, they really want to achieve things for the betterment of the team and the company. And 3, they're smart, they're people smart. They understand how to work with people, how to ask good questions, how to bring out the best in people. They can be good leaders, good managers. They can be trained to lead and to help people align to common goals and common direction. So those are 3 of our 4 key areas that we look for in people. Number 4 is actually that alignment factor I already talked about, of vision and values. And if we see those 4 things in a candidate, then we can then start to look at their skills, their background. Of course, they've got to qualify financially and those sort of foundational things. But if we bring someone in that has the money, they can buy the business, but they're going to be very difficult to train up on the systems, or they're just not willing to work hard in the business, it's not going to be a good fit. Mm-hmm. It just really won't.
All of those traits of that franchisee, they make sense to me. Now I want to walk through sort of that next phase. I'm a franchise owner. Walk me through the model. I assume it's territory based?
Yeah, so everyone has a territory with a minimum of 10,000 single family rentals in their territory.
Okay.
And there's a population density requirement as well, or minimum. And, there's going to be several zip codes that are assigned to that territory. Now, that's more of a marketing territory for, say, Google ad placement and networking, that sort of thing. But the service territory is actually about 45 miles around where their office is located, because we want the servicing of properties to be relationship based. And oftentimes, if an owner owns, say, 3 properties and one is within the zip codes, one's just outside, we don't want to limit that owner's ability to manage those properties for a client. And so we focus there within reason, right? It's not going to be crossing state lines or any of that kind of stuff. And so we don't have hard service territories like some brands and some industries might, but we focus more on that from a marketing standpoint.
Okay. Walk me through as a new franchise owner, tell me all the roles that I'm hiring for. I want to kind of get a sense of what kind of staffing do I need to run a KeyRenter property management franchise.
It's what's cool about it is in the very beginning, it can just be a single owner operator, and they're going to be wearing all the different hats of leasing and maintenance coordination and business development and operations. The quicker they're able to hire someone, and oftentimes they'll wait till they have some of the cash flow to start hiring. It's usually around that 25 to 40 unit or property under management benchmark milestone that they're looking for, to start bringing in an assistant that might handle more of the back end administrative work. As they start shedding those hats to people at different levels of scale, they'll have a leasing agent, they'll have a maintenance coordinator, they'll have even oftentimes a business development manager that's bringing in new business. They'll have someone that's overseeing the field work, say checking on properties, property evaluations, condition reports, those kind of things. And they can get to a point relatively quickly within a couple of years to where they're just focused primarily now on building team and creating leaders and managing maybe some escalated situations that come up. And then eventually, for example, in my case, I still own an office, a location. When I stepped back into the franchise to run it, I brought in one of my team members that had been working for me for a few years, made him a junior partner in the business, and he runs the business. And now I spend maybe an hour or so a month in that business, mainly just with him on some leadership and him giving some updates and that sort of thing. And so this business allows you to be very in the trenches, right, in the beginning. And we really only look for owner operators. That we don't look for outside absentee investors, because there's just such a element of needing to understand the nuts and bolts of the business. And so those owner operators can step in, they can hire someone to run a lot of the day-to-day in the beginning. If they have the funding for it, they'll grow faster by doing that. But oftentimes they'll grow to a point where they can hire that out of the cash flow of the business.
Okay. And the properties that they're managing, is it strictly long-term rental, or do you guys do short-term as well?
Yeah, we focus on long-term residential, and there are some property management companies, even a franchise system, that they'll do short-term and vacation short-term, HOA, commercial. We focus on residential, and there's been a lot of validation, even recent articles in the Wall Street Journal talking about how single-family rentals is kind of the sweetheart of the real estate asset classes right now. It's really performing really well compared to a lot of the other, and we focus on that for several reasons I could get into. But that's definitely what we have done, what we have mastered, what we see as being the best revenue producing per labor hour input business in our field. That's our focus.
That's awesome. Well, I know from being a short-term rental owner that there's a lot more challenges, and they happen a lot more frequently, of course, with guests coming in and out each week.
It's just a very different business. It's not a bad business, right? It's just a different business. You got to have different tools, different processes, different softwares, different people oftentimes. And so it's just not for us. I think there's been some validation too of areas of the country where, man, it's under scrutiny, right? There's legislation being passed in certain parts of the country that's restricting short-term rentals to 30-day minimums, right? Which can really suck out a lot of the opportunity there for people that have established already management companies. I love short-term rental as an investment. I don't love it as a management strategy. To scale a management company. It's just not for me. I know that there are those that will find success there, and they do. It's just not KeyRenter.
Yeah, no, that's great. You know who you are, right? That's what's Absolutely. Most important. Tell me about how you guys help franchisees gain clients.
Yeah, we have what we call an account-based marketing program. That's kind of at the crux of our strategy and unique to KeyRenter, where before a new franchisee opens up, we have a list of all of the property owners, the rental property owners in their market, and we're able to delineate down to the ones that could be a good fit for them, so that we can then start prospecting. They can start prospecting to the owners that own maybe 7, 8 or more properties. We can also start dripping content in front of them on Meta, Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube, different areas, because the number one issue we have as an industry is awareness. It's amazing how many property owners, rental owners, don't even know that we exist. And number two is perception. People that maybe have tried using a company or a real estate agent doing it on the side and didn't have a good experience, and so they think that they can do it better themselves. And what's amazing, Frank, is there's about 85 million single family homes in the country. 24 million of those are rentals. 91% of those rentals are owned by individuals, people like you and me, LLCs. Only 4% of the nation's single family rentals are owned by REITs, large corporations, syndications, that sort of thing. So there's a big group of these rentals. 79% of those are managed by the owner, which is amazing that, in our country and in Australia, it's actually the opposite. It's flipped. Australia definitely values much more of the professional manager doing their job, alleviating the burden. But in our country, it's just a matter of time for these owners that are self-managing to say, you know what, I'm kind of done. I want to hire this out now. Or they had a bad experience. And that's what we call a big blue ocean of opportunity. So from a marketing standpoint, we want to be in front of these people 10, 12, 15 different times. So when they do have that first experience, they say, you know what? Or maybe there's a law that was changed, right? Legislation. They're just not up to date on things and aware of how they could get themselves into trouble because they're just not. I mean, these are dentists. These are other professionals that are doing this on the side, right?
Right.
So when that first experience comes or they get tired, we want KeyRenter to pop into their head. We want to have already established a little bit of trust, relationship. Maybe there's some education-based videos and programs that they've already been able to see and learn from before they make a decision of hiring us.
Nate, what would you say is one of the most common misperception when a potential franchisee calls about the model itself?
That's a good question. I think probably the most common one is that when they're thinking about a franchise, they might be thinking in their head, what is a franchise? Well, McDonald's is a franchise. Subway is a franchise. And they might be thinking, okay, KeyRenter is going to just tell me where to stand and tell me which button to push, and then the business will operate itself. And in property management, especially when we're dealing with housing, there's nuances in every state, oftentimes in every county, sometimes city levels that are different. And it's up to the franchise owner to be plugged in, to be learning and understanding some of those nuances and some of the changes that are happening. And it's important for them to be able to apply the processes, the training, but they've got to be able to think about it. They've got to be able to use judgment. Relationship-based businesses like this, service-based business, requires much more thinking than, say, a McDonald's. And I'm not saying that McDonald's doesn't require that. I'm just saying that they need to come in understanding it's going to be work. It's going to require for them to be on their toes, be thinking about how to handle conflict and situations a little bit differently, and be able to scale through leadership and management. And it's just a very different business model than what oftentimes I think people think about in a franchise.
Sure.
Come in, push the button, at the end of the day, push the off button and you're done.
Right. Well, you're not pushing the button of the hamburger, and that's not how it works. There's definitely a sense of you have to be able to have a franchise owner that can make the right call, that has good judgment. And right, in addition to the systems and processes, there's just situations that come up when you're in property management and dealing with the clients. What's been your biggest surprise since franchising here now in the last, 9 years, right?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I wasn't expecting. When we were thinking about going nationwide, we understood that, okay, this is going to be really cool to have our brand in other states, and the income potential is there for us to scale and grow through franchising and everything like that. But one thing that has really resonated strongly with me is the impact that we can have on the lives of the people that are buying a KeyRenter business. And when we're franchising and we bring in a new partner, we literally have the opportunity to change someone's life for the better. And not just one person, but the many people that are involved in that business, whether that's their family, the team members, property owners, residents. And I think the impact that we have on people's lives and the text messages that I get from time to time from franchise owners where they're saying, man, I'm so grateful that I got into this business. Thank you for allowing this to happen. And I write them back and said, man, this is all you. This is all you and your hard work that made this happen. Yes, we provided maybe the vehicle, but you're driving that car and doing such a great job. And I think the fulfillment that I've gotten, and I know that Aaron would agree with me, that the fulfillment through the ability to change people's lives, I was not expecting that. And it's powerful. It's powerful. And at the same side, on the opposite side of the coin, it adds to the sense of responsibility that we have of seeing that they're winning, seeing that they're doing well. Because I do get those texts from time to time too. It's like, man, why did you let me into this business? This is harder than I thought. Or, man, I'm having such a rough day. How can I? And that just happens in life and business and everything. But impact, I would say, that ability is something that was surprising to me. Right. I knew it would be there, but you just don't know what it's like until you're there.
I thought I was just starting some, fun sports league because I like sports. And then you get people that you meet up with, years later and like, oh my gosh, you have no idea how my life changed. And you're blown away. You're not prepared for that. What a surprise beyond something you ever dream of.
Well, we just had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago. One of our kind of unique differentiators and I think strategic advantages is that we hire a lot of people out of Mexico to do some of our back end administrative work, both on their corporate team and throughout our franchise network, franchise partners and their team members. Some of them are out of Mexico, and just amazing people that oftentimes they grew up here in the States. And for whatever reason, they're back in Mexico, and they're just incredible people. And we have some in some other South American countries as well, and other places. And we've been doing that ever since really we started the business. But we had the chance a couple of weeks ago. We had our second annual, we call it a KitCon, KeyRenter International Team Member Conference. And myself, my wife, and a couple of people from our corporate team, and Andrea Marshall, my partner, and we go down. There was probably 5 or 6 franchise partners that were there, but it was a conference for these team members that are used to, for most of their lives, working in call centers where they're just treated like garbage, and they're a number. And we're there, we're spending time with them. We're doing training and coaching and giving hugs and kudos and just awards and celebration and dinners, and just an amazing experience for people. And you see directly, in fact, one of our franchise owners came to me the last day and just said, Nate, I had no idea how impactful it'd be for me to come down, meet with my team members, take them to lunch, spend some time with them. And he just knew that the return on that sort of investment will be 10, 20, 30 times. And just with the buy-in and the team members feeling like they're more part of a bigger system and a bigger thing. It's just pretty amazing to have those opportunities to really impact people.
Nate, and you've also been recognized. I can't fail to mention that you guys were already on the Inc. 5000, one of the fastest growing private companies in America. That must have felt absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's great. We got a thing hanging on our wall. It's something that we're proud of. But at the same time, it's like, hey, we got that. What's next?
Exactly. Yes, I agree with you. You get the recognition. It's like, put the trophy up. You look at it once in a while, but we don't hang our hat on it moving forward, right?
Well, and I think, what does this mean for our franchisees, right?
Right.
I think it's important, but let's make sure that our focus is on them and their success. And I'm more proud of, to be honest with you, Frank, I'm more proud of the awards that they have gotten in their local markets. In fact, one of our locations in Denver was awarded recently Best Place to Work.
Wow.
And isn't it amazing? I mean, having a culture, having a group that's that's so impactful in their local area that they're voted best place to work. We had the same thing in Boise. They were awarded best of state, for their business. What an amazing opportunity for them to be recognized. I love that kind of stuff because that means, okay, there's good happening in our system, in our network, and it's not just at the corporate level. It's all across the board, and that's what makes me really proud.
What's your vision for this company now? And there's probably parts of the vision yet that haven't been seen through that you and Aaron had talked about. I'm kind of curious on what's next for you guys and how big is the vision?
Yeah, so we're at 63 locations right now. The end of 2026, we want to be at 120. Beyond that, of course, we want to grow beyond that. I just don't have numbers and all that sort of stuff down, but we want to start moving into some other countries. Generally, English speaking to start out with. Canada is an easy one for us. But there's so much opportunity here in the U.S. that our focus is here for now. And, we want our franchisees to be winning in their business first and foremost. And so as we're bringing on new franchise partners, I want to see that our growth in number of units is growing at a healthy rate, Sure. But our growth of the revenue, system-wide and network revenue, as well as individual average and median revenue is also growing at that 30, 35, 40% rate that we've been getting for the last 5-6 years, year over year. And so as long as we're doing those sort of things, we're on a good trajectory. I'm very happy with that. I'm very proud of the people involved that are making that happen.
What advice do you give to people who are considering joining your brand?
I think coming to us with an open mind, an open heart, really exploring where you want to be in your life first, creating that life plan is important. I think in any business venture, we need to have a life plan before we have a business plan, because if we have the life plan and the business lines up and resonates really strongly with that life plan, then it can be a good fit. And then, we love to spend time with candidates and really get to know them get to know us. And oftentimes the decision to join the franchise is more based on, yes, the tools are great, the training's great, all those things of supporting them, but who are my partners? I mean, this is a long-term commitment. Who am I working with? Who's supporting me? Who are the people involved? And so being prepared to kind of shed a little bit of some of the guys sometimes that comes through business conversations and be able to get a little bit more vulnerable about what truly are we looking for here, and is it really a fit for my life? That's my biggest piece of advice for people.
Cool. I get this question often from folks that are starting out. And so I'm curious, how did you guys get or find your first dozen or so franchisees?
Well, it's funny. We were told in the very beginning, we were talking to several different franchise concepts and founders, and some of them would say, well, your first sales will be friends, family, or fools. And we didn't sell to any friends. We didn't sell to any family. We didn't sell to any friends that we knew beforehand. We consider them friends after, of course, and as we got to know them. And we absolutely did not sell to any fools. So we kind of broke that model. And I don't know, I think we had really good success with just building trust with people. And we were very upfront with people. In fact, our Denver franchise and Chicago North franchise, they were in our very first training week. And as I talked to them about it, and Austin was very early too, and I talked to them about it, and they just say, you know what, we just really liked you and Aaron. And we knew that we were the first ones. We knew we were getting the guinea pigs. We knew that we were what we were getting into. And we didn't try to oversell them that we had everything figured out. In fact, we came to them early on and said, hey, we can't wait to partner with you because we believe that you can help shape the future of this system, of this franchise. You can help us improve upon what's already good, making it great, and continuing to iterate. And I believe that's been part of our success, is just being willing to recognize that we are not the smartest people in the system. In fact, some of the best ideas that we've implemented have come from our franchise partners and even their team members. And that's transformed the way that we've been able to do business.
Nate, I think you were able to award a bunch of franchises based on your authenticity. People pick up on that. You're the real deal. And I feel like you're the kind of person that you do the right thing. That's one of the biggest challenges we have as a franchisor, right? Is it's easy to do what's popular, but doing what's right can be challenging. And I think that has been a big part of your success. And I'm sure Aaron was the same way. Do you have maybe a memorable piece of advice or something that Aaron said back in the day that sticks with you to today?
Oh, very quickly it comes to mind. He always told me, he always told our franchise partners, everyone that he could talk to about have a vacation on your calendar at all times. And I love that. And I didn't live it as well up until maybe he passed. And then after he passed, I'm like, man, I need to do better with that. So now my wife and I, we always have a vacation planned on the calendar in the future. And before we leave for that one, we have the next one on the calendar. And that's something that he was really good at, and creating those memories. And so we've been really pushing that to our franchise owners as well, and to our team members. We want them to have life building and memorable, positive experiences with their loved ones, and being able to step away from business is really important. And I've had team members say, hey, well, I'm on vacation, I'll make sure I'm checking my email so nothing. I'm like, if you do that, consider that your resignation. Because life is too short, and there's always going to be things that they come back to. So that's what comes to mind, Frank.
Nate, if someone was interested in learning more about the franchise, how can they get more info?
Yeah, just go right to our website, KeyRenterFranchise.com. We go through the whole process, explain how it works. Contact info's there. There's probably some videos where you can learn more about it and hear from franchise partners as well and their experience. And so that's where I'd go. Cool.
All right. I got one last question for you. The tip jar. So give me a piece of advice. I'm an entrepreneur wanting to franchise my concept. What do I need to know, man? Give me something.
Oh, I love that. Probably the greatest piece of advice that I have doesn't necessarily come from myself, but the application of it does, which is actually the words from Jim Rohn, one of the greatest mentors of mentors, which is, if you want to achieve more, you have to first become more. And I think that truly as we're growing our businesses, and we have these lofty goals, we have to grow into those goals. We don't just achieve goals, but we stand on the books and we stand on the training courses and the mentor programs in order to reach those top shelves and those goals. And so we've got to achieve more by becoming more as people and individuals. And so continually working on ourselves, reading books, talking with mentors, being able to push ourselves every day and becoming just a little bit better every day. Those marginal gains pay big dividends over time. That's my tip for your tip jar, Frank.
Awesome. Nate, you've been incredible. I just want to thank you. You've been an inspiration. And really, it's an honor to have you as part of the brotherhood in franchising. You are just part of what makes franchising so incredible. So thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your insight. I know there's been so much good here that people have gotten something out of, and thank you.
Loved it. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.